Welcome to another episode of Comics and Pop Culture Shorts. This week we're looking at the comic book stories of Harlan Ellison, both original stories and adaptations. The Night of Thanks, But No Thanks, is the first Batman stories written by critically acclaimed writer Harlan Ellison. It was published in Detective Comics number 567 around late 1986. This is a story that writer Harlan Ellison promised to write for editor Julius Schwartz during Schwartz's tenure as editor of Batman. However, Ellison delayed the script so much that it was published in this issue, a whopping 8 years after Schwartz had left the Batman editorial office. For this reason, this story is dedicated to Julius Schwartz. Spoiler alert, big damn heroes, hilariously subverted when Batman tries to come to the rescue of a lady who is getting mugged. While running to her aid on foot, he gets cut off by a delivery truck passing by, and then he finally reaches her. He's shocked to see that she was more than capable of defending herself. Now let's look at the Star Trek episode The City on the Edge of Forever. Initial pitch and outlines. Harlan Ellison was one of the first writers recruited by Gene Roddenberry for Star Trek. Roddenberry was aiming to have the best science fiction writers produce scripts for the show, and had identified Ellison immediately. At the time, Ellison had been nominated for the 1965 Writers Guild of America Award for Outstanding Script for a television anthology with his script for the Outer Limits episode Demon with a Glass Hand. He went on to win.
Leaving Los Angeles,
Ellison was inspired by reading a biography of evangelist Amy Semple McPherson, and thought that it would be an interesting idea to have Kirk travel back in time and fall in love with a similar woman of good intent, but someone who must die in order to preserve the future. Ellison considered that it would have a heartrending effect on Kirk. In March 1966, Ellison pitched the idea to Roddenberry, who accepted it. When writing it, Ellison did not have as many restrictions as some of the later writers. He was hired prior to the series Bible being created. Roddenberry disagreed with some of Kirk's actions in the first draft, and he asked Ellison to rewrite the treatment. Ellison was unhappy with the televised project and wanted to use his pseudonym of Cordwainer Bird, but was convinced to use his own name. The IDW version shows Ellison's full story as he intended it to be. And now, the Dream Corridor. Dream Corridor featured an all-star lineup of writers and artists adapting a variety of Ellison's work, including classic tales and a number of stories Ellison wrote just for the series. If that doesn't make the comic sound interesting enough, it also features artwork from Kurt Swan, Gene Colan, Doug Wilde, Eric Shanower, Gene Ha, Steve Rude, Gary Johnny, Neil Adams, Richard Corbin, Paul Chadwick, Michael T. Gilbert and Phil Foglio, to name just a few of the people who worked on the series. From Dorman T. Schindler. After a cable network couldn't put together a sort of Twilight Zone/Alfred Hitchcock Hour/Outer Limits type show, Harlan Ellison turned to the one form that best emulates screen and teleplays, the comic book. With the help of Dark Horse and dozens of writers and artists, Ellison produced 6 not-so-regular issues of Harlan Ellison's Dream Corridor, the likes of which hadn't been seen since the good old days of the House of Mystery and the House of Secrets. In truth, even those venerable stalwarts never looked anything like Dream Corridor, with its wildly careening styles, from zany to realistic to nearly abstract, and none of the stories in those pioneer anthology comic books were ever quite as dark or sharp-edged. Our final entry will be Harlan Ellison's Daredevil. By Evan Narcisse, Daredevil number 208. I got hooked into Harlan Ellison's non-illustrated prose and fiction writing after my first contact with him in comics. The rambunctious genius of his writing created a gravity while I didn't want to escape. His concepts were sharp, his descriptions lush, and his drama filled with stakes that always mattered. Ellison's career took him to many spaces, and he's shown in most of them. Daredevil number 208, written by Ellison and Arthur Byron, cover, with art by David Mazzucchelli, Danny Bulanati, Joe Rosen, and Christy Shealy, showcases the best aspects of both the title character and Ellison as a storyteller. Daredevil's exhausted and just wants to go home, but then hears a cry for help from a little girl. Only she's not a girl. She's a bomb. Specifically, a robot made to lure Daredevil into a tunnel that herds him towards a gauntlet of death traps. I'm not sure what each writer's specific contribution to the story was, but the gleeful command of scientific minutiae as Matt Murdock's masked alter ego faces hazard after hazard and inner monologue voicing feels very much like Ellison. The pacing of this story is insane, taking a well-worn trope from superhero comics, the elaborate death trap, and ramping it up to the nth degree. The marathon of danger that Daredevil faces always feels like it's ratcheting upwards with pressure, and his exhaustion becomes the reader's. Yet all that density executes a counterintuitive trick of also creating exhilaration, because it's a roller coaster ride to see Daredevil barely escape with his life multiple times in this single issue. That was our final look at the world of Harlan Ellison-inspired comic books. What did you think? Did Harlan Ellison translate well into the medium of comics? What was your favorite Harlan Ellison-based comic book? I'm Andrew, in for Kevin, given saying live long and prosper, may the force be with you and keep reaching for the stars.